Headlock Pro Wrestling Interviews.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei Headlock.de. Ich sitze hier mit einem der aufstrebendsten neuen Superstars aus dem UK-Indie-Bereich. Michael Oku, the OJMO, is here with me today.
Hallo, ich heiße Michael Oku.
Perfect. So
Look at that.
we can do that in German then.
Yeah, okay, that's all we can do in German. We can't do the whole interview in German, but pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're here in Austria today. I think it's your first time here in the country, right?
Yes, like first time, not just wrestling, but in the country completely. So it's been very fun. It's been a very quick journey in terms of like getting here, straight to the venue, straight to the show. So I didn't get to enjoy the city properly. But it's been cool. It's been really cool.
So, you've been wrestling Peter Tihany today.
Yes.
The match was great. How was your opinion of it? How did you like it? How did you like working with him the first time?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I was super happy with it. He's a great talent, really, really great talent. And it's one of those things where everything just kind of came together very quickly in terms of the match, where it's like, I think we created something that was like, yes, this is gonna work. The name of the game of when you're wrestlers is we're trying to put something together and hope it works in front of the crowd. And I think what we put together, worked in front of this crowd. Again, an audience that I wasn't sure knew me or to what extent they knew me, but there was enough there to get the rest excited, I think, and that really helped us go along in terms of the match. But Peter Tihany, he's great.
Yeah, so you said some people might not know who you are. So who is Michael Oku, and what is the OJMO? Is it the same person? Is it a different persona? Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Oh, that's a great question. So the OJMO was the first name that I used in wrestling. It was the name that I came up with when I was a kid. I was like, this is going to be the name that I use when I'm a wrestler, when I was like 7 years old. It's kind of a tribute to Owen Hart, but it's also like some of my initials of my actual name. So when I realized that Owen James Hart was his name, OJ, I was like, oh, this is very cool, this is perfect. So it essentially stands for Owen James, but at the same time it's part of some of my African names is involved. But what's happened with time is RevPro were the first ones that wanted to use my name as Michael Oku. Andy Quilden was not a fan of the name the OJMO. And as time went on, I was fighting, kicking and screaming. I was like, oh, I want to use the OJMO so bad. But it kind of helped with my character, my stories in RevPro, and the fact that like I'm just an underdog babyface. And he never said this, but to me it makes sense that kind of like having that babyface that just has a name, a real name, is more relatable than a gimmick name. So I stuck with it with RevPro, and then with RevPro is where I started to get more notoriety, had the big matches. So I just slowly was like, okay, fine, I'm going to be Michael Oku, and I'm fine with it. It's cool, but it's just a funny thing that I never anticipated using my real name as my wrestling name.
So you've been trained by Eddie Dennis, right?
Yes, Correct.
So what's your relationship with him? How was training with him? When did the training happen?
Yeah, so I started training in wrestling in 2017. It's been 5 years now. Eddie is like such a great trainer. And I would believe a good part of that is because of the fact that he was a teacher. He was an actual teacher in school. So I think he's got that ability of like being able to explain things in the way that maybe other good wrestlers who are like terrific wrestlers might not be able to explain it. The same, like I'm starting to train people, and my struggle is how to explain like how to do this and how to teach, how to convey in words what I want done. But he was tremendous at it. And his sessions every Tuesday at Knuckle Locks were always packed and like full of wrestlers that were on shows, and it was just such a great learning experience. And there's so much that I've taken from his sessions that I still use to this day. Our relationship's great. We've had one singles match together, and that was for the Progress World title at an unboxing show. So like and it's a match that I'm so happy of, I'm so proud of, that like it feels like a full circle thing where like here's my trainer in wrestling, and then here we are wrestling for a world title. It's great relationship with Eddie. I'm glad that like he's back essentially in the indie scene, and he's gonna do great things because he's chomping at the bit to wrestle. So yeah.
So you've started in Rev Pro in 2018. Your first opponent was, I think, the Great Okan. So another member of the United Empire eventually.
Right. Isn't that? It's a crazy thing the way like life works. So that was my debut. It was for the TV taping. So Rev Pro was on television, and that was like the first night of tapings, and they just needed a body. They just needed a body to wrestle the Great Okan, and I was the body. And I was like, I'm gonna take this opportunity to be the best body random guy that you've ever seen. And that was enough for Andy to be impressed and to want to give me more. And again, the fact that was my first opponent, the Great Okan. Gideon Gray came out with the microphone and was already berating me the first day in, and he still does it to this day on commentary, even though now he's in Japan, in doing the same things to the Japanese. It's such a funny thing, the way like life works out and the way wrestling works out.
So you've had your first really great year, I think, was 2019 going into 2020. You were in the US for the first time at WrestleMania weekend. You wrestled Pac, you wrestled Shingo later on. So how was that experience going from, like you said, just being a body initially to within a year getting those opportunities, getting those matches?
Yes, it's still surreal to me when I step back and think about 2019. Like, I always would say, I was like, man, it's going to be hard to top 2019. I feel that I've topped it in 2022, even though we're not done with the year. But 2019 had so many moments like you just listed, and it all came so quickly. But there were opportunities that I really wanted and I believed I was ready for. So I think there's a big part of like me showing Andy, not even with my words, just with my actions and how I wrestled and my attitude, that I'm ready to take these opportunities. I'm ready for these big moments. And I was like, again, I didn't even say it with words, but I was really trying to show him with my wrestling, with the connection I was getting with the fans. I was like, Andy, I'm your guy. I am your guy. And Rev Pro was just one place, but that's the main place where I got, again, so many opportunities. Wrestling Brian Cage in New York, again, wrestling Pac, Shingo in the same month. Like, Shingo had just had that big Best of Super Juniors match with Will Ospreay in the final, and everybody was raving about it. And then the first person he wrestles is me. And I know people were baffled about it, being like, how is he wrestling Michael? But again, that was my opportunity, and I was like, I'm going to show them, like, I'm going to show everyone that why I was chosen for this opportunity. And I feel like I did that. And yeah, again, like, that whole year is just like, there's highlight after highlight for me. Traveling the world, traveling different mainland Europe. It was great. So, but like I said, I think I topped it already in 2022.
One other thing that happened this year was you were the final person to team with Jushin Liger in Europe. So how was it being in the ring with him?
Honestly, that's one of those things, and it sounds bad. But it's one of those. It's again part of 2019, and there being so many highlights. It's one of those things that I nearly forget happened. That like it's such an honor, such a weird, crazy life. I was when I was standing in the ring and it being so surreal. In fact, I got some Polaroids taken backstage by Beyond Gorilla, and I was just starting to just well up, just because I was like, how am I here? How is this happening? But again, like Jushin Liger has done it all, has wrestled everyone. There's people he's wrestled that are unbelievable. Some names that maybe we're not allowed to say on podcasts, but it's still surreal that he's wrestled them. And then here I am being the person that's teaming with him at his last ever UK match. So amazing honor, amazing thing. And I've seen him since, and he still remembers me, which I did not expect him to do. But it's just a crazy thing to say that I've been able to, that I've done.
So then you entered the cruiserweight scene, or the title picture. You wrestled Phantasma, you initially lost. Then you won the British J-Cup in 2019 in a four-way, again with Pac, with Robbie Eagles, with Phantasma. And then you finally beat Phantasma for the title. And shortly thereafter, the world and the wrestling business shut down. So how was it during the pandemic for you? initially, before any tapings or anything?
Again, it was so difficult because we talk about that year, and I felt like I built so much momentum, again, in such a short space of time. So 2019 is 2 years into my wrestling career. I spent a good part of the start of it with injuries. So like I broke both of my wrists one at a time. So I was gone from like months and months. I injured my neck, so I had to take some months off as well. So 2019 was like my first full year of wrestling, and I achieved all of those things. Then winning the Cruiserweight title in 2020, and just having that real big moment, and I was ready to like, again, ride that into big things. Some of which I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about because they may still happen. But there was so much going for me, and then it just was like, and it's all stopped. And I'm such a big believer in momentum. Momentum is such an important thing in wrestling, and I feel like if you have that momentum, you can keep riding the momentum, more things come your way. So for it to just be stopped, again, it happened for everyone, but for me, when I just felt like, I'm on the cusp now, here I am, like, gonna become something special, something big. It was just a real tough thing to think, man, how am I gonna? It felt like I was starting again, really. I felt like I'm gonna have to start again when wrestling comes back.
So wrestling came back initially, but it was, I think, empty arena tapings, the Epic Encounter period for Rev Pro. How was it for you to transition into that, from wrestling in front of sold-out houses at times to nobody, essentially?
Oh, I can say it now. It was horrible. Oh my gosh, it was so horrible. I think there may be some wrestlers that were okay or felt comfortable wrestling with no fans because of their style. I feel like a Chris Ridgway did great with no fans because, again, his style just kind of lends to like just grounded based grappling, strong strikes, same with like a Mark Haskins. But I mean, my wrestling really is about drawing on like the crowd, drawing on the energy of the people. It's so emotion based, and it's about drawing emotion from the fans. So having no fans was just so tough for me, and like it was just a real big struggle to wrestle at the level or the way that I know how to wrestle. And again, there was so much months off that I had that like I hadn't done a lot of training, so I was not in ring shape. I had lost a lot of weight, and I'm already a skinny guy. I can't afford to lose more weight, but I lost it, and then like not in good ring condition. It was just like, and no fans. It was very tough. So I was like just dying for when fans would be back and when we can do just some kind of shows with fans.
So then, during the summer of 2020, you first crossed paths with Will Ospreay. You tagged with him, actually. You faced Kyle Fletcher, you faced Ricky Knight Jr. At that point, did you kind of foreshadow what might become, that you would get to work with Ospreay more, or was it just like a random tag team at the time?
I think it was just a random tag team. It's just funny how life works again. Like, and talking about me being like not prepared, not feeling in shape. That was my first match back. I had barely any training to like get back into ring shape, and then my first match back is wrestling Kyle Fletcher and Ricky Knight Jr. tag match. And my tag team partner is Will Ospreay, who a lot of people say is the best wrestler in the world. Go. It was very tough, but at the same time, it was such an experience where like I felt the three of them were just miles ahead of me. So I was like, okay, this is where I need to get to. And again, wrestling's such a funny thing where there's a lot of seeds that are intentionally planted, and then there's some that aren't. But then when you look back on it, there's just this story that's been unintentionally told. And I think that's one of them, the fact that here I am teaming with Will. On the opposite side is Kyle Fletcher, who then joins him. On the opposite side is Ricky Knight Jr., the guy who eventually then dethrones him. It's a wild thing that there's a journey to take just from that tag match alone.
Absolutely. So we could credit Andy like by planning all that, of course.
Well, I mean, again, there was a lot though during those empty arena tapings that he did like put in set in stone and so much. Literally, the blow off for a lot of stuff that he started in those empty arenas in 2020 at this last anniversary show paid off in 2022. 2 year stories. Honestly, it really did.
So then you wrestled Ricky Knight, I think, in your first big singles match back, unifying the SWE high-speed title, I think, was it? Speed title?
Speed King, yes.
Yeah. And then you went back to tag team wrestling because Destination Everywhere then made their Rev Pro debut at the Great British Tag League. You guys teamed at a few shows before, I think. How did that team come together, and how did it come to be a big thing in Rev Pro over the coming months then?
So myself and Mills were best friends, and soon the first day I started training, he was there. He was there from day one in my training, so he'd already got he's like a good few years younger than me, but he's way more experienced than me in wrestling, so he was already there. So there was so much I was learning from Mills, but we were always training together. Iron was sharpening iron, that we had that bond, that close friendship bond, and then the chemistry was there from just training so much. Destination Everywhere started in Will Ospreay's promotion that he had at the time called Frontline, and it was me and the NIC, Charlie Carter and O'Sheen Delaney. So it's like a trio where it's like those were my heaters. Those are the guys that were going to back me up, and I was the big singles guy. We then transitioned over to Progress, where I was going to feud with DNR, that faction that everybody loved. They didn't love it. And because there was four of them, they were like, oh, let's add a fourth. So really, Progress was just like, we'll add Mills to your Destination Everywhere faction. So it was kind of them that decided to add us. Myself and Mills had one tag match ever, and it was at a WrestleForce show in Essex, just a random show. But this was once we'd got paired in, we were in this four-man stable, we started doing tag matches for Progress, and then Rev Pro came along, these Empty Arena tapings came along, where once he debuted, we started to team there. We did one tag match I think our first one was with Callum Newman and JJ Gale. That started them as a tag team, and then that really started us as a tag team Rev Pro. And then, as you said, the tag league started, and it was the first ever tag league, which is like a lovely, cool concept, and a lovely, cool concept to say that we were the first ever winners.
Yeah. So and then you also won the tag team titles during that, and then about a month later, I think you lost it to Aussie Open. How was it? And these guys have been in your life, in your career ever since. You've wrestled them, I think, in the block finals or in the deciding match for the block this year at the Tag League as well. So how is it working with them?
I mean, I'll go on record and say that Aussie Open are the best tag team in the world. And that's from being able to step into the ring with them and seeing them wrestle up close. I think they're better than FTR. I think they can get matches out of... They can get great matches out of good tag teams, and that is a very special ability to do. And I'm seeing them wrestle on Impact and all these promotions, and I'm like, I can see they're in control, and they just look like such a solid unit. And I've had so many big matches with so many big time wrestlers, famous wrestlers. For some reason, I've never been more nervous than when wrestling Aussie Open. All 3 times that myself and Mills have wrestled them, and he said the same thing. I just feel real nervous wrestling them because they're such a stand-in and they know their stuff so well that it makes you question: do we know our tech stuff that well? And the answer is normally no, but they guide you with just their ability into something that's really special. And I feel like all 3 matches we've had are really special. I'd make arguments that the last one that we had, which was for the New Japan Strong tag team titles, I'd argue that was maybe my favorite one for elements, loads of elements of it. Of course, the first one you can see for free on YouTube, so that's a plug. But that match was a real cool moment, the first one. It was Mills' debut at York Hall, and probably one of the best tag matches I've ever had.
Yeah, and I can on record as well. I've seen, I think some of our listeners may have seen Aussie Open for WXW in Germany, and they had some awesome matches there as well over the years. And I think we saw Kyle there when he was 17 or 18.
And they're so much better now. That's the scary thing. At the time, it was Davis is the big guy, and Kyle, he's tall but slim. But now Kyle is gigantic.
Oh yeah,
and he's taller. So they're just now 2 very big guys. It's scary how, and he's 23. It's just, they're the best, is what I'm trying to say.
So then in October of last year, you first faced their leader, so to speak, in the United Empire. You had a first match with Will Ospreay. So how was it actually being, you call him yourself, maybe the best wrestler in the world? How was that initial match for you? Just being across from him in the ring and just how the match went. Did you feel confident? Did you feel a bit in awe? How was it?
You know what? I don't want to be, again, I don't want to say it publicly, but I think maybe I was a little bit in awe. I was very emotional while I was in the ring and he was doing his entrance, because again, I had that thing. The same with Liger. I was like, how did I get here? And he had, at the time, he had, the IWGP World Heavyweight title as well. So he's got all these 3 belts, the 2 Rev Pro British Heavyweight belts, and then the IWGP World Heavyweight title. And I was just like, how did I get here? And so that's what made me like well up and get emotional at the time. But I felt confident. I believed in myself that I was in the right place and that I was gonna like pull off something that like maybe a lot of people didn't expect. I knew that I was gonna hang essentially with Will Ospreay. And I'll say one thing he said, which may lead into a future question, which we may talk about, is, the match was done. And the one thing he said to me is like, he was really happy with it, so happy with it. It was amazing. All we've got to do is top it.
Which eventually you did. Before that, I think you had a few 6-mans, both in Rev Pro and in OTT, so you kind of continued to build your story there. And then in, I think, January 29th of this year, you had the big one, so to speak, the one that I think Dave Meltzer gave it 5 stars in the Observer, and I think you talked about that in other interviews. So once Dave Meltzer mentions you with that kind of star rating, you can think about that what you want. But obviously, he's a very big influence on the news scene and the wrestling scene itself. So a lot of people took notice, and a lot of people who may not have heard of you before suddenly knew your name. So. You talked about the match extensively, and Amira played a big part in telling the whole story. It was kind of, I rewatched it today actually. It was like this great emotional story that was being told. How did all of that come together? Was it more a spur of the moment thing, or did you plan all of that out in advance?
Well, it's probably a bit of both. In terms of all the elements that came into play, I think we did a promo to build it up at a 229 London show, and it was a throwaway comment that he brought up my girlfriend. I said, "Oh, even your beautiful little tart of a girlfriend can be front row," and that was enough for us to be like, "Oh, maybe now that we've mentioned her, maybe she should be involved." And then there was all these different elements of like, well, what's the finish going to be? I think that like I was told again by Eddie Dennis that like drama like overtakes everything. You can have the craziest match with the craziest moves, and the crowd will go crazy. The only thing that can go better than that is if you add drama. So we knew that we were going to add the element of drama, and again, how to top the match that we had in Southampton was to add so much drama, and we had the elements with my family being there ringside, and then Amira being there as well ringside, and using her for so much stuff. A lot of that was the day of. We were like, oh, well, let's do this, let's do that. So a lot of it was a day of, and not like a lot of thinking of like beforehand. But we had to. It was very tough to find a way to cross something that was like unique, but then would pull on people's heartstrings. And then there's just some stuff that happens while you're there in the ring that once you watch it back on the camera picks up in a way that you never would have imagined, that like makes it so beautiful, so like epic sometimes, I would say. So again, like a lot of it spur of the moment. The match went 40 minutes. The plan was not, let's go 40 minutes. It was just, let's put together a really cool match. And it just happened to go 40 minutes long.
So then another crazy thing happened. You eventually got to replace Will Ospreay. A few months later, he was out with a bad kidney infection, and you actually got to face Minoru Suzuki. How was it with him? Because he's like a totally different kind of cat, and a totally not a cruiserweight, not any fancy stuff, just hard hitting, no nonsense. How was it being in the ring with a guy like that?
yeah, just again, I'm going to repeat myself. I put a clip on my Instagram the other day, maybe on my Twitter as well, of like when the bell rang for that match. And it was just that was the moment when I was like, again, what's going on? This is Minoru Suzuki, who, for me, he was what got me into New Japan. Minoru Suzuki versus Hiroshi Tanahashi from King of Pro Wrestling 2012. I might have watched a bit of New Japan here and there, but once I watched that match, I was like, okay, I'm all in. I'm all in on New Japan. That was 2012. So
yeah, that's one match to pull you in.
Exactly. I'm sure, yeah, you remember it. And then you'll also see, if you watch the match, you'll see elements of the King of Pro Wrestling match that is in the match with the Suzuki. But like, for that to be the one that got me into New Japan in such a big way, and then I'm just standing across the ring from him, just from, again, it's an unfortunate twist of fate, but again, like it for Andy to have the faith in me, which is a thing that I can't stress enough. There's so many of these moments and these matches where Andy had the faith in me, sometimes more than I had faith in myself, to put me in that position and be like, York Hall is sold out. The best wrestler in the world can no longer do it. The replacement is going to be you. There's a lot of pressure on that alone, and I was terrified of like, man, we are going to disappoint so many people when you say it's me. There is no replacement that will work, and I'm hating the fact that I'm going to be the person that's going to be disappointed. But we found a way. Again, I think I credit it to how I've been booked and how I've been positioned in Rev Pro, where we found a way that people left satisfied. Because again, that was the first time Suzuki is wrestling in Rev Pro in the UK since 2019. So the crowd, I think, were just there to see Suzuki. So in my head, I was like, okay, we're going to give them Suzuki. Oh, and by the way, the other part in terms of making it difficult is, yeah, that's your second match of the night. I already wrestled Mills for the Cruiserweight title earlier in the night, and it's like, oh yeah, and then you're going to, later on, second match, you're going to wrestle Minoru Suzuki in your main event. So good luck, please deliver. It's a lot of pressure sometimes, and sometimes I feel like people may be like, some wrestlers might be jealous and like, oh, why isn't it me? Why? It's like, I'm telling you, the way mentally, the stuff it does to you mentally, you don't want it to be me. You do not want to be me sometimes, I'm telling you.
So I'll quickly plug the Rev Pro On Demand service, where people can see all of that, and I'll use that to lead into the next question, because you eventually lost the Cruiserweight title to Luke Jacobs after 890 days, I think. And I'll just rattle off a list of people you faced during your time as champion. Robbie X, Chris Ridgway, Mike Bailey, Luke Jacobs, Rich Swann, and you actually defended that in the US over Mania weekend. Shota Umino, Yota Tsuji, Tony Deppen, Connor Mills, your tag team partner. So many other names as well. So was there any favorite opponent or a favorite title defense you had during that period?
Well, at first I think I have to correct that, because cage match, as accurate as they can be, sometimes they're wrong. I don't think the Shota and Tsuji matches were not for the Cruiserweight title.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know why they put it.
It might have been my mistake as
well.
No,
it's definitely on cage match. So other people have just reported it was a Cruiserweight title. I'm like, okay. But at the same time, I loved those matches because the young lions wrestle in such a different way. It's such a great learning experience that it's so easy. It's weird to describe it, but it's easy to wrestle them. Out of all of those matches, I'm going to say the Mike Bailey defense might have been my favorite defense, my successful defense, because again, we talk about best in the world. There's a very good argument to put Mike Bailey up there as one of the best in the world, especially the year he's having now. It's incredible. But so to be in there with him and to, in my opinion, steal the show on a show that has Will Ospreay was such a great feeling. As well, I credit Mike Bailey with a lot of my development as a wrestler. He put out a tweet. And he put out a tweet maybe in 2019, just saying, "Hey wrestlers, if you want me to give you feedback on your matches, just DM me." And I was like, that could open the floodgates to a lot of people. But I gave it a shot, and then he responded very quickly in like paragraphs of details. And it's so much stuff that I use to this day. And I asked him another match, and there's so much I use to this day that has changed the way I wrestle, the way I wrestled here tonight in Austria is so much because of that feedback from Mike Bailey. So then, again, a full circle moment to then be in the ring with him for the first time in the singles and have that match that we had, again, free on YouTube. It's just like a really cool feeling. So I'd say that one's my favorite one.
So you've lost the cruiserweight title recently, a few weeks ago. You did not manage to regain the tag team titles. So what's next for Michael Oku in Rev Pro going forward? Are you looking to move up to the world title again, or what's your plan, or how does the rest of your year look in your mind at this moment?
Well, at the moment, the big thing that happened, so, night one of the 2-day 10-year anniversary shows was the New Japan Strong title defense for Aussie Open, where we tried to win the New Japan tag titles, which again is a crazy thing to say. Oh, we've challenged for the New Japan tag titles. And then the second night was Connor Mills turned on me. After years and years of friendship, years and years of tagging, years and years, there was, again, a funny thing. I said, like, the first time we tagged was at a random show in Essex in Dagenham. There's like a father and son that was there for that time that we're tagging together for a WrestleForce show, it's named the promotion WrestleForce. They were there for that, and they're also there in the crowd at York Hall. I think it's like 2018. I think 4 years later, they're there for when the breakup happens. The boy's like grown up, he's nearly a teenager, and he's seen the journey from beginning to end. So I guess what's next for me in Rev Pro is the Connor Mills situation. If I can get rid of him, if I can sort that situation out, it would be either to get back together and we can go for tag titles again, or, like you said, the British heavyweight title is the one title I haven't won in Rev Pro. I want to be a Triple Crown champion. I love winning belts. I love it. So, there's that part of me that always feels like, man, I feel like I should have been the one to beat Will Ospreay for the title.
But the guy who did is a guy that you beat in the past for a championship. Exactly. So there's that story to tell.
Exactly. So there's just that thing of like, well, Ricky's the one that did it. Congrats to him, but that belt is so prestigious. You run down the names of people who held that, it's crazy. AJ Styles, Minoru Suzuki, Tanahashi, Zack Sabre Jr. Just a wild list of wrestlers. I want to be on that list. I want to be on that list as a British heavyweight champion.
So Rev Pro is your home promotion, I think you could say. But you've been working a bit at OTT in recent months. How do you see the UK scene today? I mean, we've been post-pandemic, we've had Speaking Out, but on the other hand, NXT UK just basically disbanded, so a lot of talent that were kind of locked up there are back available on the indie scene soon in a few weeks. So how do you watch the scene and how do you envision it going into 2023?
I think it's fairly healthy. Maybe it's a better question for the promoters, the ones with the money coming in, so they can see. Oh, maybe it's not very healthy because my pockets are empty. Who knows? But for me as a wrestler, so before 2020, before the pandemic, I would call that period the rebuilding phase, because we were already trying to rebuild because of the people lost from NXT UK and this, that, and the other. So I was already calling that a rebuilding phase, and then obviously the pandemic happened, Speaking Out happened, and then we need to rebuild again. I want to say that we're at a point now where things are not the level they used to be, but they're in a healthy state. And I think 2023. Again, 2022 is the first full year of wrestling since the pandemic. We only came back in the middle of 2021. I think this year has been fairly good to a lot of wrestlers. We're seeing a lot of UK talent going to America, going to obviously different countries. Again, we're being able to travel to countries like Austria. All over Europe, I'm seeing so many UK talents. And also so many guys and girls going to Japan again. Cara Noir has been announced to DDT, and Kid Lycos is. I saw Nightshade and Rhea O'Reilly are going to Tokyo Joshi Pro and Alex Windsor. She's been there. So I think that's a good sign that things are getting healthy again. The fact that everybody can travel. They were seeing imports come back here because they want to come back here. There's loads of GCW talent coming in. Yeah. So I think going into 2023, I think we're going to see a very, very strong year of British wrestling. I think maybe it might not be the heights of 2017 and 16, but I think it's going to be so healthy and so promising because there's such a crazy crop of talent, young talent that are available and they're ready to show the world what they can do. So I'm very, very hopeful for it.
So your Twitter bio actually says destination everywhere with a bunch of countries that you've wrestled in. You've recently been back in the US for Gardens Day Wrestling. You've been part of the Mania weekends, kind of like the last big one before the pandemic and the first big one back, because last year was kind of like not a lot of action. Is the US something that you'd be interested to wrestle more in? Is that kind of a final destination for you, making it somewhere in WWE, AEW, or maybe even with New Japan Strong there?
Final destination, I like that. I should call a move that. But yeah, so it was a very lovely experience going to America, and it seems as though like it's just bigger. America is just bigger. So there's like no matter. I went there and I was very surprised about people that did know who I was, but at the same time, there's so many people that don't, and that's an exciting thing for me. It's an exciting thing to then do things to get them to know me. When I go to new places, it's so fun to like win people over, get over in front of new people. And America's like it's nearly like an infinite number of promotions. So I would love to obviously go there a bit more regularly, see what comes my way. And in terms of if there's a company that has contracts, I can't say that, this is the one I want and I don't want the others. I'll be smart about it and I'll weigh up my options if they come, but I'm very open to whatever comes my way, if that makes sense. So if it is an AEW, if it's a WWE, I'm going to listen. I know everybody, it's fun to hate WWE, but at the same time that they are the biggest wrestling promotion in the world. So those are options, and of course New Japan. If it's not in America, then maybe in actual Japan. I'm happy to give it a go in Japan.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, people love to hate on WWE, but on the other hand, a lot of changes in that place as well recently, and a lot, I think, changes in talent, philosophy. If we look at what happened in NXT in the past with NXT UK, they announced NXT Europe, so nobody knows when that will launch, how it will look. Might be an opportunity for you as well, and leading into the next question, mainland Europe, you've wrestled in a few countries, I think France, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, you've been in Germany for GWF. How do you see the scene here, or have there been any other promotions reaching out to you, maybe to, like here today, it's like a one-off show in a place in Austria. Would that be something like be kind of more of a journeyman to go into the smaller promotions, help them up their ante, so to speak?
Oh, I would love that. I really would. It's a weird position to be in because I feel like I'm there very quickly, but I'm in a position where I can help. I'm in a position where I can teach, I can educate, I can like bring people up to a level because and most of it is because of the people that I've wrestled that are above me. Very rarely will they be able to be like, oh, I'm going to wrestle a guy who's wrestled Pac, a guy who's got 2 belts in AEW right now. I'm going to be in the ring with a guy who's wrestled Will Ospreay in like one of the best matches of the year. Like it's not just like a random match, but I've had these big matches that people talk about with Shingo, all these guys. I've got knowledge from them. I just want to give it to other people. I love the kind of the parting my knowledge, sharing my knowledge. I've been teaching now. I try and do more seminars. So coming to an Austria or going to an Italy, especially Italy, oh my gosh, there seems to be like an Italian wrestling boom. That's my prediction. I predict there'll be an Italian wrestling boom because there's so many new promotions popping up in Italy that there's something interesting going on. And I think everybody needs to keep an eye out on Italy. But I would love to just, like you said, be a mainland Europe journeyman where like I could just go back and forth and it's easy to go there. Even with a Brexitized passport, it's still easy to go there. So, and also finding out new talent. Again, I'd heard of Peter Tihani, but I've never properly wrestled him or properly watched all of his matches. And then I go in the ring with him and he's just as good as anyone that I wrestle in the UK. So I also love that part of discovering who the next people are, or who's just as good, or who needs to be seen by other people. So yeah, I'd love to come back to Austria. I'd love to go back to Belgium, Holland, anywhere, name it.
So if any promoters are listening, book Michael Oku, and I'll give you the chance now to plug yourself or plug your chance. I checked out your YouTube channel today, so there's a lot of cool stuff on there, a lot of really great match highlights as well. So where can people find you? How can people reach you? Where can people find out more, see more? We mentioned the Rev Pro service as well.
Yeah, I mean that would be I'm essentially a regular at Rev Pro. So if you go on revproondemand.com, they've got a new on-demand service. They don't use PivotShare anymore. It's like a Vimeo kind of service. So the quality of the video is a bit better, and it's just easier to navigate. So if you want to check out my matches, some of my best matches as well are there. So go for there. At the OJMO on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, even Facebook. TheOJMO.com for my merch. ShopRevPro.com as well for my merch. So many, I'm trying to think, what else can I plug? And then, of course, like for promoters, I guess you'll see it's all in my bios, like ways to message me. You can either use my email address that's there, or you could DM me, and I might eventually respond. If it doesn't go like to spam or go to the requests. So follow my stuff, and as you said, Marcus, the YouTube. I'm trying to really like put as much content on there as possible because it's just an untouched platform, but everybody uses it. So go to my YouTube channel. You should just type my name and it should come up. And I post a lot of MVs. And if I get like permission from certain place, I might try and put like full matches, but there's a lot of full matches on YouTube anyway. So yeah, check me out on social media. I'm easy to find, and support me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for talking to us, and we'll finally let you have some rest for the rest of the night today.
Oh, I'm not going to rest. I'm going to have some beers.
that works as well. Thank you.
Headlock Pro Wrestling Interview.